Hello, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Tim's Reflections, where we talk about stories from Jesus' life. We talk about the parables that Jesus told. And today, we'll be talking about the feeding of the 5,000. And we'll be reading from John chapter 6, starting in verse 1. And it says, After these things, Jesus went over the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias. Then a great multitude followed him, because they saw his signs which he performed on those who were diseased. And Jesus went up on the mountain, and there he sat with his disciples. Now the Passover, a feast of the Jews, was near. Then Jesus lifted up his eyes, and seeing a great multitude coming toward him, he said to Philip, Where shall we buy bread, that these may eat? But this he said to test him, because he knew himself what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 denarii worth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may have a little. And one of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, There is a lad here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish, but what are they among so many? Then Jesus said, Make the people sit down. Now there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down, in number about 5,000. And Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to the disciples, and the disciples to those sitting down, and likewise of the fish as much as they wanted. And when they were filled, he said to his disciples, Gather up the fragments that remain, so that nothing is lost. Therefore they gathered them up, and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of the 5 barley loaves which were left over by those who had eaten. I want to talk about some reflections on this, but I want to point out before we do that, I want to point out a couple of things from here. First of all, if you or I were there, it would have been very easy for us to say, like Andrew said, there's 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. What are they among so many? It would have been easy for that little boy to say, this is my lunch. And what good is it going to do to feed all of these people? There's not enough food here. The other thing I want to mention, with Jesus' blessing, they fed, this little bit of food fed 5,000 men. We don't know how many women and children were there, but we know that there were more than 5,000 people that day. And when they were done, there was more food left over after feeding all those people than they had when they started. Started with 5 loaves and 2 fish, finished with 12 baskets of fragments. So I just wanted to point those things out. But now, a couple of reflections. And that is this. What is it that we have today? What do we have in our hands that Jesus could use? And I have a book here, and it's an older book, and it's called Men and Women of Deep Piety. When I say old, the copyright date is 1920. And it has little biographical chapters about various people in history who exhibited deep piety. And this lady, I had never heard of her before. I read this little chapter, and it's very short. It's just 1 page. And it shows how she used what she had in her hands. Her name was Lizzie Johnson. One of the most remarkable examples of suffering devotion is that of Lizzie Johnson, who was an invalid for 26 years. For 18 years, she never raised her head from her pillow nor sat in a sitting position. But during those years, she raised $18,000. You wonder how? Love always finds a medium of expression, and her love for her Savior caused her to love the souls of the heathen and to desire to spread the gospel to benighted lands. First, she pieced a missionary quilt. She hoped to sell it for $50 and thus redeem an African slave, but she found no purchaser. Bishop Frank W. Wayne learned of it and asked her to send it to him. He took it with him, showing it to large congregations, telling Lizzie Johnson's story. Instead of $50, the quilt raised $600. In addition to the quilt, she made and sold thousands of scriptural bookmarks all over the world, attending to all the correspondence herself. Hear her own words. I have worked very hard as I lie on my bed of pain, and am thankful to God for the opportunity of so doing. The profits resulting from the sale of my bookmarks go to maintain native workers in foreign lands. The work overtaxes my strength, yet I am eager to toil on and do all I can to enable these native pastors and Bible women to continue their soul saving work. She supported 5 Bible women, 2 in China and 3 in India, and she passed away on September 21st, 1909. So think about that. Here she was, an invalid in bed. For 18 years, she never raised her head from her pillow or sat in a seating position, but during those years, she raised $18,000. And this was late 1800s, early 1900s, somewhere in that time frame, where $18,000 was a whole lot more money than it is today. But she used what she had in her hands. And the question for our reflection today is, like Lizzie Johnson, what do we have in our hands? What do we have that we could use to help others, to point others to Jesus? The little boy had his lunch, his 5 loaves and 2 fishes, which he gave for Jesus' use. What do we have? Here's some examples of things that we could do. Let's say we're a furnace repairman. Let's say I'm a furnace repairman, you're a furnace repairman, and we have an elderly neighbor. It's the dead of winter, it's bitter cold, and their furnace goes out. We could go over there and fix the furnace for them easily. We could use our abilities, what God has given us, to benefit another person in need. We could, if we have a neighbor who's maybe had a death in the family, maybe they're sick, they're under the weather, we could go over there and mow their grass. Or if it's wintertime, we could go over there and shovel their snow. We could be of benefit to them in a time of need. If we know that there's maybe an elderly person on our street, an elderly person we know, a single mother struggling to make ends meet, we could, when we're at the grocery store, we could buy some extra things and take a grocery bag over to the house and give it to this person in need. Another area that we could use what we have in our hands is just some time to go to a nursing home, to visit a nursing home, to visit the elderly people there. I can't imagine how lonely it would be for people that are in that nursing home who have maybe no one comes to visit them anymore. How nice it would be what a blessing it would be for them and for us to go there, sit down with them, talk to them, ask them questions about their life, maybe read to them. Maybe their eyesight is failing and they can't read. Another thing we could do is to call someone on the phone, maybe an elderly relative, a shut-in from our church, someone who can't get out, doesn't have a lot of social contact. We could give them a call on the phone and talk to them. We could also take some time and volunteer at school. Teachers need help in the classroom. There's a lot expected of them, and they have children with various needs in those classrooms, and they could use the help. We could go and maybe help teach a child to read, to be involved in their life, to show them that someone cares. Those things are so important for us today. Find a way, this is my challenge in the coming week, find a way to take what we have in our hands, whether it be time, it doesn't have to be money, it could be if we have some extra money, but it could be time, it could be a God-given ability, it could mean just some physical help for someone in need, it could be sharing something from our cupboard at home with someone in need. There are so many things, there's so many needs out there in our world today, and there's so many things that we can do to help them. That's my challenge for each of us this week. Find some way to make someone else's life better, to share their burden, to help them carry their load, and to show them that someone cares. Thank you for watching the video today. God bless you, and I hope that you have a blessed week, and I'll see you again next time.